Mom, we've been thinking. My son Daniel began the moment he stepped into my living room. His wife Clara hovering just behind him with that rehearsed saccharine smile. My stomach tightened. I already knew this wasn't going to end well. Backhand index pointing right. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this, because what you're about to hear will leave you stunned. My name is Evelyn, I'm 65 years old, and this house has been my entire life. My late husband James and I built it from the ground up when we were young and broke but full of dreams. Every creaking floorboard, every crack in the wall carries a piece of our history. After James passed, the house became more than bricks and wood. It was my last link to him. But to my son and his wife, it was just valuable property. Daniel sat down, not asking, just claiming the armchair across from me. Clara perched delicately beside him, her diamond earrings flashing as if they were sending signals only greed could understand. They started with polite words, circling like vultures. It's a big house, Mom. You don't need all this space. It would be smart to sell while the market's good. Think of the opportunities. I nodded slowly, hiding the storm brewing inside me. They weren't talking about my comfort, they were talking about their next car, their next vacation, their next step up in the world. Daniel leaned forward, his tone shifting. We could really use the money. Clara's been looking at properties for us. If you sell this place, you'd have enough to move into a small apartment, and the rest could help us out. It's practical. Practical. That word hit me like a slap. Practical for them, maybe. For me, it was betrayal dressed up as logic. I forced a smile. I'll think about it. My voice was steady, though inside I was shaking. They didn't notice, or maybe they didn't care. Clara beamed, as if the deal was already sealed. It's for the best, Evelyn. Families should support each other. Support. The irony was cruel. I had supported Daniel his whole life. Paid for his schooling, helped him with his first down payment, even babysat his kids so he and Clara could chase their careers. And now, at 65, when all I had left was my home, they wanted that too. After they left, their perfume and arrogance lingering in the air, I sat in silence. The walls seemed to close in, whispering James's words back to me. Promise me you'll never let anyone take this house from you. Had promised. And I wasn't about to break that promise. Not for Daniel, not for Clara, not for anyone. Still, I knew I couldn't fight them with anger. They were younger, sharper in their own way, and united in their greed. If I was going to protect what was mine, I had to be smarter. I had to be silent, patient, deliberate. They thought I was weak. They thought age had dulled my mind. But they had forgotten one thing. I had nothing left to lose, and that made me dangerous. The following days were a test of endurance. Daniel and Clara called constantly, their voices coated with false sweetness, pressing me to make a decision. Mom, you don't want to waste time. The market could dip. Or, think of how nice it'll be for you to have less to manage. Every call tightened the knot in my chest, but I played my role. I told them I needed time, that I was considering their suggestion. I let them believe I was bending. In reality, I was making plans. I pulled out the dusty box from the closet, the one filled with old papers James and I had kept. Deeds, insurance documents, letters from the bank. I spent hours poring over them at the kitchen table, the lamplight casting long shadows. The more I read, the clearer my path became. If Daniel and Clara wanted a game, I would set the rules. A week later they came again. Daniel's tone was sharper now, less patient. Mom, we can't drag this out forever. Clara and I found a house. We need to know you're on board. I looked him straight in the eye. I told you I'm thinking. Clara's smile faltered. Evelyn, don't you want to make things easier for everyone? You could be in a lovely apartment downtown, close to shops and friends. Isn't that better than rattling around here alone? Alone. The word pierced deeper than they realized. Yes, I was alone. But this house, our house, was my companion. The silence here was filled with James's laughter, with the echo of Daniel's childhood footsteps. No apartment could replace that. I stayed calm, though my pulse hammered. I'll let you know soon, I said, rising to end the conversation. They left, frustration crackling between them. I watched from the window as Clara tugged Daniel toward the car, whispering furiously. For the first time I let myself smile. They thought they were cornering me, but they were only tightening the noose around their own necks. Because while they plotted to strip me of my home, I was quietly preparing the one move they would never see coming. Urdu. I didn't sleep much after that cafe meeting. Even though I had spoken bravely and laid down my decision, my heart thudded all night. I kept replaying Oleg's face. No, Daniel's face now, because that was his name, and Anya's was Claire, twisting with fury as I told them I was selling my apartment on my own terms. Their shock had been almost satisfying, but the emptiness that followed was heavier than I expected. When the sun rose, I stood in my kitchen holding a mug of tea. The steam rose against my face as memories washed over me. My late husband, Richard, had chosen every tile in this place, every shelf, every corner. It was more than walls and floors. It was a memory chest of a life lived together. And now my own son had looked at it as if it were nothing more than currency, something to flip into profit. But I reminded myself of what my friend Clara had said. You're not a victim, Evelyn. You're 65, sharp, and still standing. Don't let them think they've already buried you. That thought gave me strength. 2 weeks later I finalized the sale. A young couple with a baby on the way bought the apartment. They had bright smiles and hopeful eyes. And for a moment I almost saw a younger version of myself and Richard in them. Handing over the keys hurt, but it also felt like releasing something heavy I'd been dragging alone. The money went straight to the bank, secured, untouchable. I refused to let greed sniff it out again. I found myself a modest studio apartment in a quiet town. Ground floor, overlooking a shared garden where roses and tulips grew wild. I moved in with only the things that mattered. My old armchair, my ficus plant, and my collection of books. Everything else I left behind with no regret. The first night there, I sat in my armchair and listened. No footsteps of schemers pacing in my mind. No weight of betrayal pressing down. Just the sound of crickets and the hum of life beyond my window. For the first time in years I felt safe. But rebuilding a life at 65 is not easy. There were days the silence cut deep, when I wondered if I had amputated too much. My family, my son, my very blood. Still I pushed myself forward. I joined watercolor classes at the community center. Something I had always dreamed of but never dared. My first paintings were a mess of smudged blues and greens, but the act of mixing colors, of pressing brush to paper, gave me a joy that surprised me. A quiet joy, the kind that fills the cracks loneliness leaves behind. Months passed. I made new friends, women my age who laughed without calculation, who shared biscuits and stories about grandchildren without bitterness. I even laughed at myself sometimes. The stubborn old woman who had chosen paintbrushes over battles. My health improved too. I walked daily in the garden, tending flowers, watching seasons change. Then one evening, as I was watering the roses in front of my little apartment, I saw him. Daniel, my son. He stood awkwardly by the gate, shoulders slouched, his face older than I remembered. And for the first time, he wasn't flanked by Claire. He was alone. "Hello, Mom," he said softly, almost like a boy again. I put the watering can down. My heart didn't race. I didn't feel anger. Just a distant echo of something once warm. "Hello, Daniel. You found me. Clara gave me your address," he admitted. "May I come in?" We sat on the small bench outside my door. He kept his eyes on his hands, fumbling with his fingers. Finally he said, "Claire and we split up. After everything with the apartment, things fell apart. She called me weak, said I wasn't ambitious enough, that I should have pushed you harder." He said it without bitterness, only exhaustion. I studied his face. The sharp malice I had seen months ago was gone. He looked worn, defeated, human again. "I'm sorry," I murmured. "And I meant it." "Don't be," he said, lifting his eyes. This time there was no hunger in them, no calculation. Only fatigue and a shadow of regret. That day at the cafe when you left, I realized I hadn't lost an apartment. Lost you. I just couldn't admit it then. We sat in silence for a long while. But it wasn't hostile silence. It was a fragile, tentative truce. Two people who had shared love once, who had burned it down, and now sat in the ashes together. "Are you doing well, Mom?" he finally asked. "Yes," I said truthfully. I pointed toward the window where my latest watercolor dried. "I'm doing well. Paint. Garden. I live quietly." He nodded, then rose to his feet. "Well, we'll go. Forgive me if you can." "I don't hold a grudge, Daniel," I replied. "It's just different now. If you want to stop by for tea next time, you can." He gave a small nod and walked away slowly, disappearing around the corner. I didn't chase after him. I didn't cry. I went back inside, brewed myself herbal tea, and sat in my armchair. The emptiness was gone. In its place, calm. I had defended not just my home but myself, my dignity, my life. The victory was quiet, without applause, without banners. But it was real. And sometimes that's the only kind of victory that matters.